How do we make sure that innovation doesn't get stagnant? Our next panel is how to create the innovation feedback loop. Joining me on stage is Danny Zaslavsky from VinQ.
Going on tour with my family and friends. I don't need nothing but them and the fans. Record the vocals and send it to friends. Do it again and again and again. Distro kid paying, don't need your advance. Kara Lewis on the phone with a plan. Said that she booked me a show in Japan. Damn.
Everyone stand up real fast. Sit down. Okay. You've been sitting a long time. Everybody needed just that little break. We've only got 30 minutes left on the stage. Danny, I think we've heard the I word a couple times. Anybody heard the I word this morning? It's starting to become one of those drinking games, innovation, right? When I hear innovation a bit too often, it's one of those words where it doesn't start to roll off your tongue. It sounds a little funny, and we start to forget what it actually means, where it comes from, and how we get it. Big companies, let's call it P&G, GE, large companies, when they start to create consumer packaged goods, they create these things called focus group. Has anybody ever done one of those paid focus group things for like $100? Look at Matt Jones. He's like, I do them all the time. It's house money, right? They create focus groups to create better products. In auto or in the tech world, a lot of times we say this thing called product market fit. Has anybody ever heard product market fit? Yeah? Product market fit? Nobody's ever heard of that except for one person right over there. But product market fit, which means you create a product, see if the market likes it. But sometimes innovation has to come from a lot different place. Actually, I think the argument that you might make, Danny, is that innovation should come from a whole other place and not just like some random person's brain that thought they could solve the problems of the world. Where should we start when it comes to innovation?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Okay, so I believe innovation happens on the front line, but let's define that. So I am a dealer, I own a car dealership, and I started a software company years ago, and we wanted to stay true to purpose. And so let's define the algorithm for innovation. It starts with people. Can you bring that up for me? People, you, me, we have ideas, right? And those ideas will turn into process. The point is here, process could be trade appraisal process, acquisition process, merchandising process, pricing process, marketing process. And if you think about the people in your organization that are each touching one of these processes are really created for two reasons: to create efficiency or profitability, right? Technology merely scales process, not the other way around. And so I made the mistake years ago of going into a show like this and saying, okay, what do you do, how do you do it, and how is it going to make me better? And then they would install it, and if the technology was great, I would have a good outcome. But if the technology sucked, then I would have a bad outcome. As leaders...
And you're a dealer, too,
And I'm a dealer, that's right.
Yeah. And so you're saying, like, I would go find a thing, put it in my store.
I'd be the passenger of the outcome versus the driver.
Got it.
And so the goal is process is the champion. So let's take that a little bit further. That's how I define innovation. So today we're talking about the innovation feedback loop. And in a few minutes, we've got the great pleasure of bringing up some people who have challenged us to build some things. But this is the way that we think. Inspiration, ideation, build, test, execution, observe, measure, evolve, and adapt. So let's break this down. The point is, this is a loop. Let's go into inspiration ideation. The first step here, this is where you build curiosity. This is where you build insights. Years ago, I shared this quote I really liked: pain pushes, vision pulls. And it's this idea that you will either be pushed by pain to the point of surrender and say, this is the way it's always been, nothing's gonna change, or you'll move into vision. And vision's really fun because vision's gonna tell you, this is the outcome that I want. Inspiration ideation is the beginning of innovation. The next is build, test, and execution, right? You gotta be bold in building out what is the process and then how do we scale it with technology. Now, the booby trap is most people get stuck between inspiration, ideation, and then building. And then they'll fail, and then they'll just kind of go back and forth. And I've heard this at my own store years ago. Well, we just have meetings, and we talk about things, and nothing ever changes. Well, because they get stuck here. Let me tell you how to get past that. The next step is observe and measure. So this is where we use data.
Real quick, I think that it's important that you said test.
Yes.
Right? That testing something, right? If we go back to like grade school, when I created like a thesis, right, which is the idea, that what would happen is you would create the thesis, right? And then you would have to go like do multiple ways, like try it this way, test it this way, test it that way, control, ideation, right? And actually testing was not the final state. And I think that that's an important part of this, right?
It is, because think about it this way. Like in my business, we are appraisal, we are inventory management, we are merchandising, we are syndication, we are new car, we are used car, we are incentive management. In all of these different areas is an opportunity for efficiency and profitability. And when I ask somebody, how do you appraise a car? They'll tell me, well, this is the way I've always done it, or I look at market day supply. The point is, the insights on the screen drive the behavior that drive the outcome, and the outcome drives the profit and loss. So if we can be curious about the information that we're ingesting, right, for the outcomes we're expecting, it really changes the game.
Yeah, and so I think when you test something, and then you were saying the screens are what drive the behavior, right? The screens really have the observation and measurement of all of the testing that we're doing, and we're continually testing, right? If this is a loop, you're telling me that build and test is actually potentially always going on.
It's always going on.
Observing and measuring is always going on. So if we're building and testing, observing and measuring, the only way to get the loop back to the beginning is you tell them. I don't want to tell them.
Evolve and adapt. At the end of the loop is the opportunity to start over, and that's the point. When I started the software company, there was a part of me that thought, we're going to build something, people are going to use it, it's going to be great. But that's actually not how it works, right? The process is always evolving. And so now that we know that it's a loop, let's talk about why we're doing this. So attributes of an innovator. Obviously, we need to be visionary, but not everybody has vision, right? And as I look out into the world of people I work with, there are people who have superpowers of execution, there are people who have superpowers of vision, and when the two intersect, magic happens. So be a heat-seeking missile of those people within your organization that both understand the essential problem that you're trying to solve, and then are also curious about that innovation feedback loop. Be relentless in the pursuit of that, be results-oriented, and most important, be humble to it. Because intent, in my opinion, drives every outcome.
Now, what I find so interesting about our industry is scaling innovation happens in many different ways. You can have 437 rooftops or one rooftop, but scaling innovation can happen all of the same. You've brought a few people with you today that I think have scaled innovation in unique ways. Interestingly enough, we have one person coming to the stage that scales innovation across multiple rooftops, which if you don't know, is a very difficult thing, right? And then we have two people that are coming to the stage that are scaling innovation across a much smaller piece, but with a
much
lot
larger
more
impact.
Cars, right?
That's right.
So it is our pleasure to invite to the stage three innovators that I think are absolutely incredible in our industry. Do me a favor, put your hands together for Brian Benstock, Patrick Abad, and Dinos Constantine.
Going on tour with my family and friends. I don't need nothing but them and the fans. Record the vocals and send it to friends. Do it again and again and again. Distro kid paying, don't need your advance. Kara Lewis on the phone with a plan. Said that she booked me a show in Japan. Damn, I never.
You've been standing for the last 30 minutes, so I'll let you sit. Sound good? Brian won't be able to stay sitting much longer, so I know that for a fact. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us, first of all. Danny, thanks for getting us kicked off here. The rest of this conversation, the last 20-something minutes, and please make sure and jump in your app. You may have questions for these gentlemen. If we don't get to them all, they'll be all in the app and able to answer them. We do have that live Q&A feature available. You each have come here for a slightly different thing. So first of all, do me a favor, go down the line, just introduce yourself, where your store is at, and how many new and used units approximately a month that your organization is selling.
So my name is Patrick Abad. I'm the general manager of Beaver Toyota in Cumming, Georgia, and we do about 600 cars a month, new and used.
Awesome. Dinos.
Dinos Constantine, Chief Operations Officer at the Holler Classic Automotive Group in Orlando, Florida. We do approximately 1,700 units per month.
Brian Benstock from Paragon Honda, Paragon Acura, and White Plains Honda in sunny Westchester, New York.
And you sell a lot of cars.
We sell some cars, yeah.
Danny, give me just a little bit of background into the relationship that you have with these gentlemen and why it's important for them to be here sitting with us today.
Yeah, so, I mean, it started with Patrick years ago. What inspired me about Patrick, and I was telling him last night, is I love this morning's session on culture. Patrick's superpower is building people and scaling people. And he saw something in me, saw something in our organization, and his goal, Patrick, you may be talking about it, is to outperform the market. Because not only is he scaling people, he's exceeding expectations of his customers. And for that, we should be able to outperform the market instead of race to the bottom of it. Dinos and I met a couple years ago, and they really had an appetite to understand how to take control over new cars. And so we took on that challenge, and I'm excited for him to talk about that. And Brian, him and I joked, I chased him for 2 years. But coming up to Brian and somebody who is already selling over 1,000 cars a month and creating an outcome better than he has today was a huge challenge. So let's get into that.
Yeah, so Patrick, we've known each other for a while, and one of the things that, actually, I was at the very first time I came to your store, I was asking you about your used car sales in particular, and we were talking about your inventory turn. And you know, the conversation was all around profitability and what you can get out of used car inventory. And you had this like angsty moment where you were like, I just know that cars can be sold for more money, so why don't we sell them for that? And I think that that's a problem that you've had for a while, and you're starting to, you've solved for a lot of that. Talk a little bit about like where you saw the source of the problem and where you are today.
Well, I would say, I will start with the source of the problem is, in this business, we sometimes don't look big picture. I got sick. I remember I got just sick. We buy a car on Tuesday for $30,000, and because we were on a tool that tells us we should sell it for $29,000, we put it out the next day for $29,000. Now, I'm not a math whiz, but I'm pretty sure that's not a good thing. I buy it Tuesday for $30,000, and then I go put it out tomorrow for $29,000, and that was a problem for me.
Sure.
Like we were doing that every single day, and you know, this is back. That actually was the moment when I decided to get off vAuto and go to VinQ with Danny, because I told him I have this problem and I want to solve it. And you know, innovation is technology and all this stuff, but also innovation comes when you have ideas and you have thoughts. You know, I don't just like selling cars. That's part of what we do. I believe I need to sell a lot of cars and make a lot of money because I have 270 employees in one dealership that are counting on me to do so. So when I went to Danny and we started talking about how do we do this, I sell cars now today, all day long. You can look at my inventory at 106% of market. When I would say the majority of the industry is trying to figure out how to price their cars at 99%. So we finally decided that we were going to get in bed with somebody that was going to listen, who wasn't going to tell us how to do things, but was going to listen to how we wanted to do things, and that's where it all started.
Dinos, your organization transitioned to one-price selling. How long ago at this point?
We transitioned about 12 years ago to
Okay, so quite some time, and I was fortunate to do that before I left the stores as well. And one of the biggest difficulties with that is the fact that in order to be a one-price selling store, you have to be extremely diligent about pricing that car on the right price, at the right time, every moment that you possibly can. That presented a significant problem for your salespeople, right?
Absolutely. Margin management is absolutely key in a negotiation for your organization, and putting the right car at the right price at the right time was critical. And so great tools out there to help us take a look and see how cars are turning when they're exiting the system. So pricing the cars was one issue that I think we've actually checked the box. And post-COVID, it was actually much simpler because our prices didn't change very much. The market was fairly static, low supply of cars, high demand for vehicles. But now we've moved into a brave new world that equation has been not quite turned upside down in its head, but the situation's changing much more rapidly on the ground. And one of the things that we discovered is that, we were pricing our cars correctly, but the reality on the ground was that's not what was occurring at the transaction level. When you have 3,000 cars in inventory enterprise-wide and you're changing prices at a fairly rapid rate, maybe not quite as quickly as an airline, but incentives change, supply changes on the ground. You may have a run on certain colors and trims. It's important in a margin management world to make the adjustments quickly than to maximize your remaining inventory. So one of the challenges I posed to Danny was, can you help us right now in terms of maybe putting a QR code? I mean, the revolutionary concept. Most industries have already adapted this, and we have not. I mean, we're stickering 3,000 cars, and it's a huge project when you're changing prices at a fairly rapid rate. So working with VinQ right now, they were very helpful in terms of putting a QR code system in place where it actually ensured that we had the right price at the right time, the correct incentives. The general manager could make a fly change right at his desk, and in real time that's showing up right on the showroom floor. More importantly right now, we're actually working with VinQ right now with what I call truth serum. If we did sell that car, is that actually what transacted in the DMS? So VinQ's helped us put some of our pricing back into our DMS, and is now helping us put some reporting together right now to reconcile those two pieces together. Many times customers may come in on vehicle X, they switch to vehicle Y, the price is different, it might have accessories on it, but somehow it was not adjusted in the DMS, and we either charged the customer too much, which is not a great experience for the customer, or we didn't charge enough and simply gave things away. So we're trying to really decrease the amount of variance that we see in the ultimate transaction pricing, and it's been a journey. It hasn't been perfect, but we're well on our way.
Yeah, Brian, I don't know, it was probably 3 years ago, and I'm listening. I can't remember. It might have been a call we were on or a Clubhouse thing or something like that. And I'll never forget the line. He says, the one thing that Apple has down that's increased their market share isn't because they found market share, it's because they created their own market share by dynamically changing the way that they manage trade cycle management, right? And you were like, if we as an industry get trade cycle management down, I don't know, I'm trying to do my best Benstock. Am I doing okay? If we as an industry get trade cycle management down. Come on now. Come on. Let's go. Right? Then we totally change what our capacity is for retention within the earned customers that we already have. But we've struggled to solve that problem. How is that problem being communicated to the tech partners that you have so that you can solve that problem for your customers and your people?
It's really big. Thank you very much, by the way, Kyle. This is a fabulous venue. Paul and Kyle, you've done something magnificent here. I'm really appreciative to be a part of it. Trade cycle management is something that's really near and dear to my heart. It's my buried treasure. I think there's so much data and treasure sunk in the database, and I think that if we really get that down, none of the OEMs have it figured out yet, and I think technology is really going to help us solve for that X. You know, my business partner, Ashley and Andrew, are tech freaks, and that's part of one of the reasons that we're together. How do we use AI to mix AI in with the DMS to create an IMS, an intelligence management system, so we could recognize patterns that the human eye can't see? And then how do we have AI agents go into the database and actually tell us which customers we need to contact now with which message at which time? And I think we're getting close to being able to do that. And then the challenges that we presented to Danny were, how do we do that now? How do we see what's going on in the marketplace, and can we raise our prices more than what we're doing? And he was telling me, you can. Wait till you see how much money you can make by raising your prices. The challenge for us is that we used the same team that we had with vAuto on VinQ, and they were using the VinQ product to simply price cars, not to look at and measure the data. And so when they would not adapt or adjust, we had to change out some of the people. And what happened is we saw nearly a 50% increase in the overall profitability. The market didn't change, but the outcomes changed overnight because the gentleman we put in there is really a data junkie, and he started looking at the data and said, hey, the data says this. And we always say, listen to the data. What is the data saying? And all of a sudden, the margins started going up. The front-end margins started to go up. Just like Patrick discovered. He knew that going to the auction. Now, quick story. My son, I didn't want to get him into the automobile business because you can make a lot of mistakes. I have a gym. I put him in charge of the gym. The first month that we have the gym, the expenses are $20,000 and we brought in $13,000. And he said, Dad, how does this work? I said, it doesn't. And it reminded me of the story you're saying. When you go to the auction and you pay $30,000 for a car and you market it for, and the tool says to sell it for 29, you're sitting there and say, this does not work. But there's other data points that we're now taking a look at. And with better data, you make better daily decisions. And with better daily decisions, you have better outcomes. And that's what's
Can I share an aha moment that we had? So a lot of these systems are backwards looking, lagging indicators. And we took the approach of market day supply is still a signal, but it's not the signal. And for those of you that saw the latest Catalyst release that we did, the last 2 years we've been super focused on predictive analytics to predict gross and churn on front and back and average days to sell, both relative to how that store performs, relative to the market, and relative to the customer perception. And those are three unique different metrics to look at because if we think right car, right price for an individual store, you're going to have one outcome. But for a group thinking right car, right lot, you're going to have a different outcome. And ingestion and digestion of a car is an art. We all say that we can buy anything and sell anything, but truly, there's a discipline to what a store can do until it earns its way into owning different inventory.
And you need that discipline because we're all managing this while moving, we're standing on a moving skateboard. You know, you've got the economy and you've got tariffs and you've got, you know, incentives on new cars impacting used cars. And so you're managing a number of things at one time. So you really have to have a certain discipline as the constant that keeps you moving forward.
Yeah. Danny, one of the reasons why you wanted to build this panel was not just, you know, to share these three innovators and their stories, but that your real truth is that the pace of innovation in our industry can pick up if this feedback loop is obeyed, essentially.
So let me tell you how we organized at VinQ. On our second floor, by design, we put our entire performance team 50 feet away from our entire development team. That way, we can put a hand on a shoulder anytime there's a question, there's an improvement, there's an opportunity. It is a live feedback loop. I think about that at my own store, between my acquisition team, between my sales team, between my service team. You need that active feedback loop in order to go through the cycle, right? And the cycle does not stop. Patrick, if I could ask you, around acquisition, we built something with you that changed the way that you guys manage around leads and looking at acquisition.
Yeah, there's actually a process difference there.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Well, see, if I asked everybody in the room right now, if you had if you sold 5 of a certain model this week, and then you had another vehicle, you sold 3 of that model, which one would you go replace? And everybody, well, you just sold 5, go get the 5 cars. Go replace those 5 first before you replace the 3. But the one thing that we miss, and this is where VinQ takes you one layer deep than vAuto ever could for us, is what if those 3 cars you had were the 3 you had in stock, those had 20 leads, but the 5 you sold only had 7. See, that's that layer that people miss when you're building your acquisition strategy. Use the data, but here's the thing, and this is where things separate themselves. It has to be easy. Right,
how do you get your team bought in? Like
it's got to be easy.
Yeah, like that's something that I think as an operator or a GM or a GSM, you can look at that data and go, that's very clear, right? But you can't be in that. You're here, right? Your team has to be buying cars today. How do you get your team committed to looking at the data in that way?
You press your partners to come out with a way to make it easy for your people to get to that solution. And that's what VinQ has done for us, really, is it's actually a report for us. You hit 3 clicks, and anybody in the room, including some of the kids, could figure out what we need to stock next.
Well, my kids could actually figure it out quicker because they're quicker on my phone than I am. But no, I think that's good. Dinos, you were about to say
Patrick,
something.
when we spoke last week, I thought, boy, that's brilliant. How come I never thought about that? In fact, I got with my used car director immediately after our phone call, and I said, we need to get that report. We need to start looking at our data in terms of how many hand raisers we're having on each and every vehicle, and not just simply looking at what's selling. So great work on that.
I think that's a key takeaway. It's like, you know, when we think about it's very interesting. Has anybody ever worked in a bar before or like a restaurant, right? Inventory management in a bar is insane. Like if you've ever worked in the restaurant industry, a bar's inventory management, I think if you need a used car inventory manager, go hire a former bartender. I guarantee they'll be amazing. Have you guys ever done that?
You heard it here, folks. Like, hire a bartender. Put him in charge of your $40 million inventory.
No, but honestly, like they are in charge.
I've got a lot of Pinot Noir here in the used car lot. What's going on?
No, but those bartenders are responsible for a very, very high turn of inventory and understanding what customers may buy this weekend, right? Like based on historical and predictive.
But hold on, here's the truth of it though. There are too many signals today for any one person to manage, right? You're
That's
totally
right.
right on looking back and saying, okay, sales data is what we should look at. But it's a freaking treadmill. It's a vicious cycle of buying what you sell. So then, okay, let's layer in lead data to understand what customers are interested in. Let's feed that to the buying plan. Okay, maybe there's more. Market demand data, competitor data, VDP data from Google Analytics. Now you have machine learning that can really empower an everyday user to behave like a veteran. And then imagine taking that into the service drive.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're missing the easy find here. This is a startup, and I want to be in bed with a startup. I want this guy sleeping on the floor, figuring out my problems. And the great thing is we can take the problems we're having at the dealership, which are many, and give them to Danny. And that's the feedback loop. We say, hey, Danny, I want to be able to do this. And back in the day with Cox, we used to do that with vAuto. You know, we created that damn thing. I'd say, hey, Dale, I'm tired of typing out these descriptions of 2008 Accords, a 2008 Accord. I want cheesy,
the cheese button,
and cheesy. And all of a sudden he goes, give me a couple of weeks, and he came back with something. And so we had that feedback loop, and we could see the things that we came up with showing up and making our lives easier. But then companies get too big, they get too complacent, and to get change, to get a single widget change, you have to go through an active Congress. It's great to have the feel of the wheel again with a company that gets it, especially
Well,
today.
and I think what you're saying is like, and this is where it's a challenge for 100% of the people in the room, is that innovation can't ever stop, and it has to be at a high pace because our industry moves at a high pace. There's so much change that you have to move quickly. Right?
Haven't we all heard about the DMS companies that buy a company and that they say that that's where technology goes to die because it stops there? That can't happen. You know,
and I think that's changing. People are seeing that because I mean, there's so many. The rate of change in the number of startups that are coming into our industry is so insane that like everybody's being forced to innovate at that pace, right?
And I think in our business, we talk about we can't stop innovating, but I think it stops. I heard this statement, I heard it a few weeks ago, and I thought it was brilliant. If you don't want to stop innovation, stop celebrating the win and celebrate the learn. And when you do that, right, because sometimes when you win, the game stops. But if you celebrate the learning and not the winning, I think you can keep that fluid innovation rocking.
And if I can add, what always sticks out of my head, you said this to me, stop holding people accountable and start holding people able. And when you treat your partners as an extension of the team, on our performance calls at the launch, we have a whole thing that we say that we mean that if you're working, I'm working. You're going to be prepared, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to make sure that you understand the market. You're going to make sure that I understand your store. You have to understand the strategy in order to meet the objective.
Well, you know, we talk a little bit about the innovation loop. The innovation loop is a feedback cycle. And, you know, one of the things I appreciate, and, you know, our best ideas come from our people in our organization. Our best ideas come when I come to forums like this and I listen to what other people have to say. But really what makes this work at the end of the day is when you go back to your partner and you talk about this is what I want to get done, and you got a reasonable time frame which it could get done, it's implemented, everybody goes, wow, somebody listened to me. I actually made a difference. And that actually spurs even more innovation in terms of how can we do things better. I think it really inspires people.
Brian, I'd love to hear from you because you have quite a big, how many employees do you have across the orgs?
What's that?
Approximately how many employees do you have across your org? Employees.
500.
500 people that you have to also key into the same innovation feedback loop because not everything can come from your brain or 2 or 3 managers' brain. How do you prod that throughout the organization so that it's always getting to you?
I've been doing less and less, and that's really cool. I've been turning over power, and it's not easy for me. But when we were having Rachel, who was making the AI descriptions for automobiles, and I was showing her through one of the chat products how to do that. And when we did that, I said, hey, give me a car that's 2023 Honda Accord, 23,000 miles, that's SEO relevant in zip code 11377. Use our USPs and use the advantages of our car over other cars priced similarly in the market. And it came out with a great description, but we found a blind spot. In your vehicle descriptions, do you have the price of your car? And the answer for us was no. Of course it was there. It was up top. Of course it was displayed, but it wasn't in the vehicle description where search relevance exists. So people searching for price didn't get our price and therefore couldn't make a comparison in the search. But then when we moved the price down, all of a sudden it could say, and this 2023 Honda Accord is priced better than the 4 other competitive, similarly priced cars at the following dealerships. Boom, 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 reason to buy. And it was such a blind spot. So I called him and I said, you've got to automate that. I can't be on everyone. How do we automate that? And you said, we're on it.
So you're in with the team, doing the things, seeing the pain.
And it's been a blind spot. I mean, search, we all want to put those terms in there, the right little words. How did we get price?
Well, so let's unpack that for a second, because I'm going to bring out the engineer in me. When Google scrapes a website, they're not scraping below the see more line, okay? So therefore, the SEO value below anything you have to click isn't, the HTML is not being grabbed. Beyond that, we learned early that ChatGPT can lie. So we married ChatGPT with our build data so that it can't lie. And then we made a rules-based engine so that it can write descriptions based on new car, used car, certified, non-certified, as is, whatever campaign you want, and then be able to add those macros to SEO value unique to the syndicate. So if cars.com only allows so many characters below the see more line, we can make sure that the highest value is above the see more line. And if AutoTraders is different, and if my websites is different, and if Google doesn't allow vehicle overlays on photos, now we're playing the game in an intelligent way using data.
Yeah, I think all these people are playing a different game. You can hear it. You can hear it in their voice. They're challenging. Dinos is like, I was on a call with this guy, and I went in and I did the thing, And I think that's the encouragement. My encouragement to you is to find these gentlemen as they go out throughout the halls, because this isn't the end of their knowledge. I saw some questions coming through. We're out of time. We'll make sure and get